This is the third video in a series of 3 videos on climate change in the light of Bible prophecy. In this video, I'll bring together thoughts expressed in the 2 previous videos, one just on climate change and one on what I feel are the most significant economic, technological, and political issues of our day. I also said that I would approach the connection between these 2 videos from a Christian perspective based on Bible prophecy. So, to kick it off, I have to say that one of the most consistent and all-encompassing messages of the New Testament, but especially of the teachings of Jesus, is that greed is the source of all the world's problems. It appears to have been crucial to the entire lifestyle and message of the first Christians. You will, of course, rarely ever hear that taught in a so-called Christian church these days. Nevertheless, it was fundamental to all that Jesus Christ said and did when he walked the earth. Jesus said the world will either work for God, building a world of faith and love, or it will work for money and all that money can buy. The consequences of consistently giving in to greed would be nothing but evil. But here's the pathetic irony of it all. Those people who most strongly support greed today are often the very ones who claim to be most representative of the Christian religion. I'm talking about the American evangelical, sometimes fundamentalist, sometimes Pentecostal right. Nevertheless, no matter how much the religious status quo denies it, true Christianity, as expressed by the true Jesus of the 4 Gospels, teaches that greed is destroying the whole world, both spiritually and physically. Jesus, James, Paul, and other New Testament writers go on to say that God is going to pour out judgment on those people who have taught otherwise, which is virtually what all these so-called evangelicals have done and continue to do. My second point deals with God's judgment, but specifically in relation to climate change. I'm talking about an amazing prophecy in the last book of the Bible, the one that puts the most emphasis on what it will be like in the final days of this planet's existence. The book is sometimes called the Revelation of Jesus and sometimes just the Apocalypse. That book says with crystal clarity, God will destroy those who are destroying the earth. According to the Bible, the final consequence of our universal greed will be the destruction of the entire planet on which we live, unless something is done very soon to reverse what is happening and to stop the people who are doing it. This prediction about God destroying those who are destroying the earth is one of the most astounding prophecies in the entire Bible. Who would have thought 2,000 years ago that the human race could ever be capable of destroying the earth? It was unthinkable. Yet that is exactly what was predicted, and it is exactly what has happened. Corporate and individual greed has brought the world to the brink of global extinction. Right-wing American fundamentalism is more or less the epitome of denial with regard to climate change and global extinction. Why do you suppose that is? Obviously, they cannot face the awful truth about A, what their wasteful materialism has done to the earth, and B, what awaits them because of this greed. God is, quite literally, going to destroy them. As sure as night follows day, they will reap what they have sown. It is their own Bible which promises that. They have made themselves the enemies of the Creator on this planet. They have done it by closing their eyes to all the damage that their greed has done to the world in which we live. And they have done it by closing their hearts to all those millions who have suffered personally because of that greed. So those are my first 2 points. Number 1, the message of Jesus Christ is that greed is the true cause of climate change. And number 2, God is going to destroy those who have, through their greed, polluted the wonderful garden that He gave us so many thousands of years ago. People like Donald Trump, Scott Morrison, and Boris Johnson all seem to assume that their families will be able to keep the air conditioning running and keep the fires at bay over the next few years until enough animals and enough of the poorest people in the world have died off. at which point the carbon levels will, they hope, drop back to safe levels without any great inconvenience to them and their families in the overall process. Theoretically, that could happen. There are millions of other relatively wealthy people who apparently have the same selfish hope, a hope that they will survive even if no one else and nothing else does. Let the plants become extinct. Let the animals become extinct. Let the third world starve. As long as they and their families keep making money, from such things as selling coal, they will be able to survive, even if they have to build underground shelters in the final stages when the rest of us are still dying off. But, according to the Bible, it is not going to happen that way. God is not going to let it happen that way. The wealthy, self-righteous denialists of the West will be destroyed. That is what Bible prophecy says. And God may well use other countries and angry rebels from their own country to do it. There's not room to cover many of the finer points with regard to Bible prophecies I will touch on in this video. However, in the description of this video below, I have included links to a few other videos which deal more in depth with the specific prophecies, thus freeing me up to just summarize here what these prophecies are saying in general. There are many prophecies about the final world government, and some of these prophecies just happen to use the same animal descriptions that are used by the 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council. The prophecies indicate that a bear, Russia, will pluck the wings of an eagle, the United States. When this happens, it effectively cancels out any effect that a lion, the UK, or an animal with rooster wings, France, might have previously had on either the bear or a dragon, China, which is also referred to as the devil himself. Then, in league with the 10 rotating members of the Security Council, the bear, Russia, and the dragon, China, will be able to control the whole world. This alliance between the New World Leader and 10 kings or kingdoms is precisely how it would work in today's world if 1 or 2 members of the UN Security Council acquired total control of that council. There are 15 members. 5 of them are permanent, but the other 10 are taken by rotation from all other members of the United Nations. This final world government is described in prophecy as being unique, at the same time that the Bible predicts that it will become incredibly cruel. In fact, the cruelest government that the world has ever known. Certainly a global dictatorship backed up by a council of 10 other nations is a type of government that the world has never experienced before. So, back to the destruction of the United States. The Revelation contains 2 separate passages, one in the 14th chapter and one in the 18th chapter, which many people believe is a description of the destruction of the United States. The term Babylon is used in those passages and elsewhere to describe the economic implications of various governments of the world. The idea is that no matter how much you change the head of the beast, or in this case the whore, it's the same beast or whore underneath. America is Babylon today, but if America is destroyed, there will be yet another Babylon tomorrow. I have so far made 3 points. Let's review them. 1. Jesus Christ condemns greed as the real cause of all the problems in the world, including climate change. 2. The Bible predicts that the greediest forces in the world are going to one day be destroyed, specifically because their greed has destroyed the planet. And now 3. The Bible specifically predicts that America will be destroyed as a result of an alliance between a new world ruler and the representatives of 10 other countries. This much I think a lot of people could accept. Maybe not many churchgoers, but a lot of people out there in the secular world. And they would accept it because it just makes sense. Greed is certainly destroying the world, and one day soon, the masses of the world are going to turn on all that callous greed, possibly even wiping out the United States of America in the process. That is what the Bible says. but it makes sense even if you don't believe in the Bible. But the Bible says other things which are much harder for the general public to accept, and I'm going to move on to them now. According to the Bible, this new world leader, the one who saves us from American greed, is going to ultimately be a huge disappointment, even though he starts out by raising the hopes of the whole world. The Bible says that the masses will, at least at the start, wonder after this charismatic new leader. Now listen to this. What the Bible warns is that the entire world is going to be totally sucked in by this guy, who will turn out to be more evil, more cruel, and more corrupt than any previous leader that we have ever had. If Bible prophecy is correct, then there must be something incredibly convincing that this man does at the start in order to win the confidence of the world. As far back as I can remember, there's been talk in church circles about just how this will happen, based on their understanding of this aspect of Bible prophecy, about an evil leader tricking the whole world. Many theories have been built around a hypothetical situation where the world finds it necessary to accept such a leader in order to escape some terrible fate. People have made guesses about a world leader who could perhaps resurrect a collapsed economy, a world leader who might save us from terrorism, a world leader who could offer some hope in the face of global catastrophes, widespread epidemics, and/or political unrest. But no single issue has, in my opinion, ever galvanized the collective will so strongly and so universally as that of climate change, because it presents a life and death threat to all of us. Neither has any issue appeared to be so hopeless as this one. For 30 years, world leaders have done little more than talk, while matters have become progressively worse. Today, the talk has exploded into a global uproar that will drown out any previous outcry from the public and the media combined over any other issue in human history. Nevertheless, we still find ourselves hogtied by the likes of Donald Trump, Scott Morrison, and Boris Johnson. You don't need a Bible to guess that those three men and the denialists who support them are headed for destruction. And it doesn't take a saint to imagine how that destruction might come about. The world is not going to sit idly by and let them lead us into extinction. Violent and widespread revolution is just around the corner. Do you hear what I'm saying? I'm saying that God is going to use very natural human and political forces to destroy those who have been most culpable in destroying the world. I cannot see it ending in any other way. But the second part is where most of us will stumble. The Bible warns that someone is going to promise a solution to a global crisis of some sort in exchange for total control of the Earth's population, and the public is going to fall for it. We may, unfortunately, have little choice. You see, in the light of climate change, democracy has failed big time. This is the depressing truth that is staring climate activists in the face every time we try to act. The world needs someone with the strength to force change, to force it on the oil companies, to force it on the coal mines, to force it on the meat industry, and to force it on any government in the world that fails to act. Such leaders are not going to come from our present system of government. Democracy, by its very nature, elects followers, not leaders. Weak, effeminate compromisers who dare not challenge the electorate or do much of anything that would lose them votes. At this point in human history, we absolutely need a dictator. In fact, we need the most powerful dictator that the world has ever seen. We need someone who can convince us that they have a foolproof plan to save the planet, and that they have the strength to silence anyone who stands in the way of implementing that solution. I believe that such a leader will arise out of communist China. Although most of us see China as the biggest single contributor to carbon emissions, it may surprise many people to learn that China is presently set to reach its climate targets under the Paris Agreement well before 2030. This contrasts dramatically with the US, where emissions are now on the rise as the result of Donald Trump's disregard for climate change. American carbon dioxide emissions had declined for several years under the Obama administration, but all that is gone now. I believe that over the next few years, the world is going to turn more and more to communist China for help with solving the climate crisis. Of course, to do that, we would need to give China the power to act in what we might all consider to be the best interests of the world as a whole, even if that means the destruction of America and communist control of the United Nations. I believe that all of this will be seen as part of the fourth industrial revolution. It will include a uniform system of global identification with huge quantum computers to enforce harsh punishments on anyone who breaks the rules. All of our business transactions will be monitored, and all of our behaviors will be logged in conjunction with strict enforcement procedures. We will, I believe, be told that such changes are necessary in order to turn around global warming, and we will be shown evidence that it has already started working in China. I don't know all the details, but this is the overall picture that I see painted both in Bible prophecy and in world events at the moment. Prophecy, by its very nature, always leaves some room for doubt. Interpretations are always imperfect, so we must be open to modification as events loom closer. Some details may not even be clear until after the prophecy has been fulfilled. But all of this is so close to becoming history now, and the pieces that represent fulfillment of the prophecies are coming together so quickly that there really needs to be widespread and urgent consideration of where all of this is heading, especially as it relates to Bible prophecy. Before I finish, I will touch on one final prophecy, probably the most significant prophecy in the entire New Testament, and the most famous prophecy from the entire Bible. It relates to something that will be linked with the arrival of this final world ruler that I've been talking about, something commonly referred to as his mark, or the mark of the beast. The Bible says that there will one day be something implanted in our right hand or in our forehead, which will be used for all buying and selling during this fourth industrial revolution. However, it also says that anyone who accepts that implant will be subjected to the unmitigated wrath of God. There is no way that John the Revelator could have known 2,000 years ago that at this precise point in the history of the world, along with climate change, artificial intelligence, and the rise of Chinese communism, banks all over the world would also be moving mountains in a rush to create a situation where the entire world could be almost instantly switched over to one world currency, controlled by a tiny RFID chip implanted into the right hand or forehead of everyone on Earth. Nor could John the Revelator have been able to know that there really would be a computer big enough to oversee every single one of those microchip transactions in real time, whether it's a gift voucher for a friend or the purchase of a luxury yacht. Everything is coming together, and things are happening faster than most of us can keep up with. The fact that the Bible reveals so much about what is happening in the world today should make all of us consider the possibility that the human race is moving toward a final showdown with our Creator. And if this really is where it is all leading, then we need to give a lot more thought to what our behavior as subjects of such a Creator should be right now. For me personally, I cannot stop shouting about climate change. Even if human governments cannot turn things around, I have to do everything that I can to separate myself from those who are destroying the earth and to align myself with those who are calling for an end to greed. I need to live my life in accord with the teachings of the one who called on us to consider the birds. He said that birds without jobs or bank accounts are fed by their Creator when they do what they were created to do. We humans were put here to live lives of faith and love, and to teach others to do the same. So much of what the world produces today is totally unnecessary, useless rubbish to fill the spiritual emptiness that is pandemic, even among many of those who sense that something is very wrong. This series of videos is a part of what I and some of my friends are doing to change all that. We are not prepared to trust any government to do the hard yards for us. We must answer personally for what we do. Win or lose, Our worth as human beings will be measured by whether or not we did what we could to point the world toward a less materialistic and a more spiritual existence in harmony with our Creator. This is precisely what His very special messenger, the one they called the Christ, this is what he taught. Please take the time to consider the things that Jesus said, in His famous Sermon on the Mount at least. It takes only about 20 minutes to read the entire sermon, which appears in the 5th, 6th, and 7th chapters of Matthew's Gospel. Or check out some of the videos on this channel, especially the Teachings of Jesus playlist. If you'd like to work with others of us who are preparing for the return of Jesus, please write to me as well. My email address appears on the screen at the moment. Please subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and click on the bell icon so that you can be informed whenever a new video is released. And if you're watching this on a DVD, you can find the channel that produced it by doing a search for Voice in the Desert on YouTube. Thank you.